In this session, I want to focus on the term dyspraxia. What dyspraxia is and how it underlies so many different diagnostic categories, such as autism, such as ADHD, but that it very much could also be a diagnosis that could stand on its complete own legs. It is part of a developmental delay, a motor neuron disorder, the way that the brain needs to tell the body how to move in a certain time and sequence, that we can operate on par with our peers, socially, academically, physically. This treatment diagnosis, since dyspraxia does not or has not been able to make its way into the DSM, so it's not acknowledged. They do acknowledge developmental coordination disorder, which is a term that we can use, though the intervention for developmental coordination disorder is not the same kind of intervention that you'll get through sensory processing in a bottom-up approach to deal with praxis. So dyspraxia is about how I want to will myself to do something, and I want to do it, but I can't get my body to do what it is that I want to do in the time that I want to do it. It's not available to me. So it makes kids feel like they almost don't have any power because they can't be productive. They can be intelligent. It does not impact on intelligence. In fact, dyspraxic kids are often quite average, if not above average intelligence, right? A beautiful strength for us to use. So, but they feel like I understand and get what everybody is supposed to do. I understand what's expected of me, but I can't get my body to do it. And so I don't feel I can contribute to a good way. So, and some of them even tell themselves, I must be stupid. I must be dumb. Please forgive me for using those terms. That's not what I say, but it's what I hear the kids say. And I hear adults say to me, Maude, I've always underperformed. I've always wanted to do more than what I'm doing right now. So if I don't have praxis, if I can't be purposeful, if I can't activate on that very beautiful network that we call the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex pathway, which is the DLPFC, and that executive pathway, if we can't activate that, it makes you feel like, you know what, the only response I can do is one that goes with my fight and flight system. So instead of thinking something through and then acting on it, or instead of being able to quickly assess it with my working memory and my prefrontal cortex, I'm doing a short circuit right to the amygdala. And the amygdala is deciding, like it? Okay, I'll stay. Don't like it? I'm out of here, right? And it's a protective response because I have to protect what I don't have to give. The nervous system is involved. It's the modulation system of setting up the just right balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic information. It is sensory discrimination. How do you see the same thing I see? Do you hear the same thing I hear? How do you discriminate different visual symbols? How do you discriminate different sounds? Does your body experience movement the same way I do? Do you need a whole lot more movement or do you need less? Each one of us have an individual profile. That doesn't make it right or wrong. There's a window of tolerance. There's a just right balance place where all of us operate. I operate because I get up at 5 in the morning and I'm ready to rock and roll. It's just my system. Don't ask me to look at something after 10 at night. I will certainly not be able to be in my best behavior, okay? My husband loves to get up as late as possible and he will work till 10 o'clock at night, right? So yes, we do meet somewhere in the middle of the day. But it doesn't make it right or wrong as long as function can occur at the best possible potential. That's what you want to look at, right? Dyspraxia is a hallmark and key. Kids who don't play, who don't get into lovely sequences of narrative and a beginning and a middle and end of a story and having imagination, applying visualization, which, by the way, we need for comprehension and reading later, right? All of those things, if you look at kids, look at their play patterns. Do they get involved with that kind of play? Are they able to structure that kind of play? Do they have a lot of ideas, but they're not able to follow it through? Look at praxis. or dyspraxia. So the autonomic nervous system is the parasympathetic, rest and digest system, sympathetic arousal system. We all have to be sympathetically aroused. Like right now, I have to have a certain amount of arousal to stay upright and give you all the knowledge I want to give you in this best way that I possibly can, right? But my parasympathetic system is available to kick in if I go too over-aroused, or if I go too slow and I start speaking softer and more fatigued. My parasympathetic can kick in and support me to get that balance there. So we also cannot ignore in these early influences that sets up the foundation for praxis that we also must look at reflex patterns and the overall body awareness of the body. There's a lot to be said about body awareness in mental health these days, as well as in sensory processing circles. And sometimes I feel like we glide over that word, like it's such a common word now. But oh boy, is that important. And it's so important for us as therapists to understand that we do not flit over to function too quickly if the body awareness is not in place. Because if body awareness is not in place, whatever activity I'm giving the child, the feedback into the body that I need to repeat it automatically is not happening in the right way. Which means that sometimes I'm training somebody at something today, and next week I'm doing the same thing. It's like I've never exposed them to it before. It's like it's just he's never seen it, but we know they have. The motor engram cannot be laid down if the praxis system is not in place to give it feed forward. That the feedback has been adequate from the exposure so that the feed forward mechanism can get in place. Very crucial. In praxis, we always look at posture and coordination as well. And you look at things like rhythm. What's the rhythm in the activity like? What's the timing? There are two separate entities. Babies have rhythm, not timing yet. Timing develops later. But timing is going to be crucial for setting up my internal timing, understanding pacing in executive functioning, starting on time for a task, not procrastinating, all of those functions that we would love to see in a school student, and that often prohibits them from showing everything that they have in terms of knowledge, not handing in the papers on time, and procrastinating that they don't get enough done to show themselves. But we also see praxis as a huge name that has several different subcomponents. You have to have ideation. You have to have an idea about what you want to do, right? The what. And that usually implies visualization, ideation, imagination, abstract thinking, including motor ideation and thinking. There's a whole training behind extrapolating those from each other. And then you have to be able to initiate a task. And that task initiation depends on how you forward planned the task. And then once you initiate it, how did you sequence through that task and executed it? And then how timely did you complete the task? And then did you complete it in such a way that the body got the right kind of feedback so that the feed forward system can be activated to repeat it, and each time you repeat it, it becomes easier. So think about driving a car, right? You learn to drive a car, it goes a little bit slow. You have to remember all these goodies. But today you're driving a car, you're not even thinking about it. That automaticity is what praxis allows to have. And this is a huge building block. What does praxis look like? I mean, if you're kind of hearing this the first time, which I hope not, but if it's in your purview to look at new skills, these are students, kids, who usually don't like the new and the novel. They like the left brain piece, the stuff that I know, right? I like the knowing that I already have. I don't like that new stuff, because that new stuff is going to ask me to renegotiate my whole body, because it's not so easy for me to take it in. I can't just easily glide there. The teacher says, okay, class, we're going to music class now. And I'm like, I just got involved with writing what I needed to write. It took me forever to get started. And now I just got into it. And now everybody is perky about leaving. Is everybody else done then? I'm looking around. I'm looking at my peers. Oh my goodness. It's an ongoing struggle. And I don't know about you, but I figured that if I have to go to school every day, and for 6 hours every day, I have to be faced with my weakness, what amount of strength must I show to get through 5 days? How do we get children? How do we get students and to understand how much effort they're actually putting in that we don't even know? And why not? Because they don't have another body to tell us that it's different from the kid next to them. And what do they call it? What name do they give it? These are kids who have difficulties with everyday tasks, like getting dressed in the morning, toothbrushing, remembering to put deodorant on when you're a teenager, do-it-yourself activities, craft activities. There's a little bit of a numbness in the fingers to be able to do those things, learning to hold a pencil, the scissor skills. You can learn to use one skill well. Like we have some dyspraxic kids who are absolutely beautiful at a sport, right? We had a very, very high sports skateboarder from Canada one time at our facility, right? And I remember still that dad's face when I said to him, your child has praxis difficulty. And he's like, come on, have you seen him skateboard? How on earth is that possible? But there's different kinds of praxis. There's a very high level of praxis that causes interhemispheric left and right brain dissonance that causes and it contributes to things like dyslexia, reading disorders, contributes to ADHD. And it needs to be looked at. And we do not have excellent tools to assess these things and put it together. We have to put things together in a certain way to get to that right trajectory, to prove what it is that we're saying and what we see. Thankfully, we have enough tools to help us to know what we are looking at. So the problem there is they learn one skill well because of a lot of repetition. And also these are usually kids who love vestibular. They love movement input. And so they go for a movement activity. They work hard at it. They get good at it. And they get that successful feeling of, I'm good at this. I'm good at this. And at least here I can excel, right? But the same body skills that they use in that sport cannot translate to the skill that they need academically, right? So it's an interesting space to operate in. And it's been so amazing over the years to learn these differences. Handwriting is difficult, executive functions, I've talked about that. And there's also a condition called verbal apraxia. Now, we have speech pathologists at our center too, and oftentimes they will get a referral for verbal apraxia. Well, it's very rare for us to see a verbal apraxic kid that doesn't also have a form of dyspraxia. And not all dyspraxia looks clumsy. Okay, like I say, some of them, the motor system doesn't even show it. So maybe it's something else we should be calling it, but right now it's the only place that it fits because it comes from these foundational areas. And yes, we can have co-occurring difficulties like ADHD, autism, executive functioning disorder, anxiety disorder. Oh my goodness, so many clients come to me as teenagers, right? And they've gone through one counselor to another counselor to another counselor who did an awesome job to help to deal with techniques to deal with anxiety. But the origin of the anxiety was not really completely pulled apart, or the why to the anxiety, the chasing of the why, as Tina Bryson always says, right? That wasn't done. And when we chase the why in that profile, we see that a developmental dyspraxia created a performance anxiety in the child early on, which then can generalize into a generalized anxiety. And of course, I don't have papers to prove that piece. What it is that we see that in practice. But oftentimes it's clinicians who see it in practice that drives the next research, right? I'm ready. Give me a researcher so that we can get the papers behind us for this. Something I just want you to connect with. I want you to think about it. It's a big deal. And if you really, really, truly know how to work with it, you can change lives. to such a huge degree. And I wish for you to do so. So again, give me your comments, give me your thoughts, your questions, and I will see what I can do about next sessions together. Until then, take care.